So far this season, the Miami Heat have been nothing short of a wild ride to say the least. I mean, between the injuries, COVID protocol, and constant rumors on all the trades they could and should make, this has been a very fun team to follow to say the least. I made a video when the Heat's win streak began after one of their first wins because even though it was early, I really thought this team was about to turn it around this season. And well, here we are with the Heat winning 9 of their last 10 games and definitely on their way to being one of the top seeds in the East and maybe even at the same level as the 76ers. But I truly do think the Heat can do this. Well, if they're able to acknowledge and fix the issue that has been very obvious this whole season, which is exactly what we will be discussing in today's video. But before we dive into today's video, let me just say if you end up enjoying the content, it would be absolutely clutch if you hit that like button below and subscribe because it really does help the channel in a big way. We're out here posting a banger video every other day at 5 p.m. Central, and I can guarantee you will not want to miss any of my other videos if you enjoy this one. But with that being said, let's just take a deep dive into this Heat team, the good and the bad we've seen from them, and the moves they should definitely make if they want to make another deep playoffs push and show the league they are legit this year. Let me just say that the time in which this Miami Heat team decided to finally heat up couldn't have been any better timing. At the time of making this video, the Heat are all the way up to the 4th in the East, which is exactly where they need to be. Like I said in the last video, if this Heat team wants a chance at making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond, they will need to get the 4 or 5 seed in order to avoid playing teams like the Nets or Sixers in the first round. No disrespect to the Bucks, but we saw how that went last year. But the other two teams on the other hand will be a very tough battle for the Heat in the first round to say the least. But it will be crucial for the Miami Heat to keep up this hot streak because the rankings in the East are just that close. And if they slip up and even have a small losing streak, it could affect their seed in a big way. If the Miami Heat want to increase their chances at being a top seed and just being able to win in the playoffs in general, there is one issue they need to fix, which is what this video is all about, their power forward situation. It is clear at this point in time, and honestly for the whole season, that the Heat need to get a stretch four for their team that can start and produce on both sides of the ball. Now this has been absolutely obvious, but it's clear that the Heat don't have someone in particular they want to trade for, being that there have been trade talks of them adding a new power forward for almost the whole season and they still haven't made a move yet. Could that be because they wanted to see if they could get someone like James Harden or Bradley Beal before they gave away any of their assets? Possibly, but at this point in time it is clear that there won't be many stars getting traded, especially Bradley Beal. So with that being said, now is definitely the time for the Heat to make a small move that could have a monumental impact on their ability to win this year and in future ones. Now there have been talks of the Heat needing a facilitator guard more than they need a power forward in order to win at the highest level, but at this point it's just not worth it for the Heat. The rumors I've seen revolving around this so far have been regarding Kyle Lowry, John Wall, and Victor Oladipo, and all I have to say to those rumors is what in the world are the people making these thinking? Sure, the Heat made it to the finals last year, but there is no way they would trade away a bunch of their assets for a guard on an expiring deal like Lowry or Depot. And what makes this funny is the fact that there is a 99% chance that Victor Oladipo signs with the Heat anyways in the offseason, which has led me to believe that they should just wait for him. Now John Wall on the other hand, well, that's for another video, but the fact is the Heat will be able to upgrade at the guard position this offseason. What they need to do is lock in a power forward now and then make a run for a ring this year and the next few. There have been many names in the melting pot of trades for this Heat team, but today I just wanted to discuss the top 3 moves I believe would not only be the best but the most realistic for this Heat team to get a stretch four they need while also still keeping their young core with all the potential in the world together. So with that being said, let's just start these potential Heat additions, starting off with Nance Jr. of the Cavs. Now I know that this is one of those moves that hasn't been on any of the headlines, but I believe it very well could be the one the Heat make because it would be perfect for their team. The package would be simple. The Heat would receive Nance and in return ship off Kelly Olynyk and a 2022 first round pick. Now it always stings to trade away a pick in a smaller move like this, but the fact is the Heat are more than likely going to be a very good team to say the least in 2022, so I believe this pick is definitely on the table for any trades they make before the deadline. Don't get me wrong here, Olynyk has been great for the Heat, but what he has mostly been doing besides being an outlet for occasional threes is pick and roll, which is one of the things that Nance Jr. can do with ease and help this team. Nance has been one of the most underrated players on the Cavs this year, and if you've been keeping up with this team, you know that. Nance this year has been great on the glass, getting rebounds, which is the main thing that Olynyk hasn't been able to do, but it's something that would help this team out a lot. Not only that, but Nance is one of those rare players that can honestly guard nearly every position on the court and would be very useful for situations in which Duncan Robinson is on the floor, to say the least. Oftentimes when people target Duncan Robinson, the Heat have to switch a lot, and having a player like Nance Jr. would just be perfect for them. Not only is Nance able to guard every position though, but he thrives at nearly all of them as well, averaging nearly 2 steals a game and initiating the fast break, and the Heat could definitely use that as well. I know the Miami Heat's defense is already elite, but this move for Nance Jr. would add even more and make this team team dangerous in the playoffs to say the least. Nance is also locked in for 3 years, so the Heat would have another solid asset locked in they could use for the next few years in their runs for a championship. And here's something very interesting. Some people forget that the Heat were at their best last year statistically and just in general when Jay Crowder was on the court. Someone who could get buckets if needed, score, rebound, defend, literally whatever you needed, this man could do it and play in whatever role you needed. Not only is Larry Nance a very similar player to this, but I believe his impact would be very similar as well, which is why I think this is definitely a move that Miami Heat should consider if the other ones I mentioned don't work out. Or even if they do have the opportunity at the other ones, this might be the trade for them to make. I know most of the Heat players are on expiring deals this year because they wanted to make room for someone like Giannis, but there is no one left in free agency, so they might as well make some moves to secure some solid role players for the next few years. Even though I had one trade that was under the radar, another move I believe that he could make is for someone that more than likely would get traded to them by the deadline. That person being PJ Tucker of the Rockets, who would be a perfect fit for this team to say the least. Now I know that most of you guys had to have seen this one coming, and even though I mentioned this trade in a previous video, there was no way I was leaving it out of this one. We all know Tucker's game by now, especially if you're a Heat fan who's been looking into the trade rumors. This guy is literally like Larry Nance Jr. except with a dead-eye 3-ball. No shade on Nance, because like I said, he can do nearly everything on the court the team could ask for, but PJ Tucker, man, it's just hard to name a better fit on this Heat team than him, and the Heat know it too. What I mean by that is just a few days ago, it was reported the Heat are interested and have engaged in trade talks with the Rockets, who are looking to trade Tucker before the deadline. So let's just get right into the package that would get the deal done. In this deal, the Heat would send off Kelly Olynyk, Kendrick Nunn, and in return receive PJ Tucker and Dante Exum. But even though this trade seems like it would be amazing for the Heat, I'm not so sure at this point because it honestly seems kind of risky. PJ Tucker is on the last year of his deal, and even though the Heat would have a chance to offer him a 2-year extension, there is a chance that Tucker would walk from the Heat and they would have lost Kendrick Nunn for nothing. Now I know what you're thinking, why don't the Heat just make a deal without Kendrick Nunn and add some of their expiring deals? And well, Houston Rockets have been very picky at the moment, so it's hard to see that happening. What I mean by that is that the Rockets have made it clear that they want some solid assets in return, which might be what turns the Heat away from this trade and instead make a move for someone like Nance, or the last move of this video, LaMarcus Aldridge. Now I know I said this video would be trades, but I believe one of the best possible moves this Heat team could make would be for the Spurs power forward, who is more than likely going to get bought out, in LaMarcus Aldridge. It was reported that Aldridge and the Spurs decided to part ways last week, but it is still uncertain if they will try to trade him or just buy him out and let him choose whatever team he wants to go to. In the case he gets bought out though, I believe this would be one of the best moves for a team like the Heat to make. Aldridge was one of the best power forwards in the league at one point, and even if he isn't what he used to be, he is most definitely still an upgrade over Kelly Olynyk, and if they could get him on a vets minimum deal, that would be even better. Aldridge would be a good pickup in the case that he signs for basically nothing, but if the Heat would have to trade for them, I don't think that would be such a good idea. But if they can bring him on for cheap, Aldridge is still very capable of being a starting power forward in the league. He would give the Heat exactly what they need at the 4 and allow them to complete their starting roster and increase their chances of making a deep playoff push by a lot. All in all, I believe the Heat need to stop avoiding the problem at the power forward and make a move for someone to fill that void, regardless of if it's anyone I mentioned in today's video or not. If the Heat are able to do this, not only will they have a better shot at the playoffs this year, but if they make a big signing like Victor Oladipo, their chances of getting a ring in 2022 are even better. But I guess all we can do is see what this team ends up doing on whether or not they make a move that can set them up for success now and in the future. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, I would highly recommend liking this video as well as subscribing if you're new and joining the Woods crew, because let me just say we have some wild trade videos this week and you guys will not want to miss a single one of them. But regardless, I really appreciate all of you guys still watching. Catch y'all in the next one. Woods out.